We must increase our bust.
Dale.
Amanda.
I mean, we could have done this earlier had it not taken till 2023 for there to be an Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret movie.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Good old Judy Blume.
Judy Blume, the author of our childhood, our mother's childhoods.
Yeah. But you know what? This is kind of crazy. I haven't read a ton of her books, which is such a weird thing for me.
Whoa, we were big. My mom was a big Judy Blume pusher.
I'm surprised by the fact that I haven't. I think I probably had them, and maybe I just never picked them up. I was a big Babysitter's Club, and Nancy, Drew. So, like, maybe
She's the best, though.
Don't know.
She covers all the hard topics that, like,
she does.
When you're that age, you want to know about.
Maybe, and I'll let you tell us about our cocktail today before I get into it.
It's just red wine.
Okay, good.
We're just drinking red wine. And here's the thing. I wasn't even going to do a cocktail because this is about as much of a children's book as you can get as far as, like, this is a very pinnacle age, you know.
It's before tween.
It's before tween, but also then there's a book out there. It's the same company that does, like, Tequila Mockingbird, and they had one called Are You There, God? It's Me, Margarita. And I was like, God damn, that's so good.
That is good.
But I just figured red wine.
So you could also drink a canned margarita if you have one.
Canned margarita, you can drink a can of wine, but like red wine, that's kind of funny.
It's appropriate.
It's a little gross, but also moms, when your daughters get their period, you're probably chugging red wine.
Fair.
Well, cheers to that. This came out in 1970.
Yeah.
It is, when I say pinnacle, my mom gave this to me when I was in 3rd grade.
Okay.
Which I know sounds very young. People are going to be like, oh my God. I was very, very much like I've talked about this before. So have you. Voracious reader. Mm-hmm. Very inquisitive child. My mom was a nurse. We were taught very early, like, you don't call your genitalia anything other than its medical name.
What its part is.
And that is, you know, as a result of her many years of sexual abuse. She was like, nope. Your vagina is a vagina. That's what it is. And to the point—
Hey, guys, we're going to be talking a lot about the female anatomy today. So
if you have a problem with that, go fuck yourself.
Yep.
If you don't know what this is, you'll learn a lot.
Yeah, you will.
But she gave this to us because it was like a really beautiful way to not embarrassingly talk about getting your period. And I had a friend who in the 3rd grade got her period, which is crazy young, but she was fully developed by 4th grade. Just think about that poor baby.
That's really hard.
And big chest, you know. So this was like you need to be there for her.
Yeah.
Because my mom was like telling us about this character in this book, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And she grew a lot faster than the other girls and got her period earlier, and everyone automatically sexualized her for something that was 100% not her fault. Yeah. Had no control over whatsoever. And so it was kind of a whole bunch of things. Like, you're going to read this and you're going to learn a lot. You're going to find camaraderie in girls that are also mad that their boobs aren't growing.
Yeah.
Learn about, like, the excitement of your period, and it kind of took the embarrassment out of it. Although I'm very lucky to have a mom that I could tell literally everything to and have told everything to.
Yeah. I think I had the opposite. I think my mom was I don't think she was embarrassed by it, but I think she had a hard time knowing how to talk to us about it.
Yeah.
So she just didn't.
Okay.
And so I was in the world of, like, discovering stuff on my own, which I wouldn't recommend, just because you tend to not get the right information. And there was a lot of, you know, like, when you're going through that period of time in your life, no pun intended, there's a certain level of embarrassment, but also, like, this want to be this mature person and, like, pretend like you know what's going to happen. Yes. And you know, because you've already gotten it and you already have the things that, you know, all these other girls that you're around have. And so for me, I was freaked out when I, you know, first realized, like, what's happening? I had no idea, literally no idea. And so going into that chapter of my life, like I discovered everything on my own or through friends.
And it's not like you had the internet. You couldn't learn things on the internet.
And I was so embarrassed to even ask my mom about it. So like, you know, there was a lot of things and there was a lot of stuff that I was told I couldn't do or use. And so like I went through the phase of like, well, all my friends are using tampons, but I can't. I'm not allowed. And then like there's just so many layers to that. And I think like you kind of – I wrote in my diary about it because like I didn't know what was happening. And like as an adult thinking back to that time, it was such a like it's scary. It's a scary time. And I think this book would have been such a great book for me to have read.
You didn't read it when you were little?
I did not read it when I was little.
Oh my gosh, that makes me so sad.
Which is like now as an adult reading this book, I'm like, oh my gosh, like had I just read this book? And it wasn't like I wasn't allowed to read the book. I just wasn't available. It just wasn't something that I had or knew about. And I think by the time I got my period, I was older. So like I was very much in the like, well, everyone's already had it. So like I can't even talk about it with anyone because it's one of those things that like everyone else already had it. So like how do you talk about it?
6th grade, the medieval times trip. We took a leprechaun bus. I woke up in the morning and I was like, that's not like blood, but like that's not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And then like halfway through the trip, I told my friend Kelly and I was like, I think I have my period. Yeah. She's like, oh, I'll get you a pad. And she gave me a pad. And then this was a very big day for me. Okay, we did medieval times trip, 6th grade. And then on the bus ride home, they had Star Wars on, which I had never seen Star Wars. And I was sitting with a boy, and he was my boyfriend at the time. And he had a Jolly Rancher in his mouth. And he said, do you want to taste my Jolly Rancher? And I was like, sure. And I thought he was just going to like take it out of his mouth and give it to me. He's like, you have to come get it. And it was my first time kissing a boy with tongue. It was a very big day for me.
That's intense.
And I ran home and my mom wasn't home and we had to go to the mall for something and we were standing outside of Filene's. Filene's? I think it was Filene's or JCPenney or something. And I was like, Mom, I have to tell you something. And she's like, what? I was like, I got my period. And she's like, oh my God, congratulations. I was like, and I French kissed a boy. And she goes, that's a lot. That's a lot of info.
That's a lot of growing up today.
Congratulations, I think. But it makes me sad because in this book, you know, the main character, Margaret Simon, her family moves from New York City to New Jersey, which is just, if you live in the city and your parents told you were moving to New Jersey, I don't blame you, girl. This is the worst.
It's awful. Like, I can't imagine.
And she struggles. Like, she makes this new friend group and she's got this very pushy, bossy friend who kind of like runs the show and they have this secret group. But it is just the cutest little example of girlhood at that time. And this, you know, like you get more of it in the movie, which we'll definitely talk about because I love the movie.
Yeah.
But the book you get, you know, she's talking about her. They're all talking about getting bras and she has to go ask her mom for a bra and like she's flat as a board and her mom's like, you really think you need it? I'm just kidding. Okay, yes, we'll get one.
Yeah.
And they all get this grow bra.
Like, I love in the movie when they measure her and she's like, you're not even a, what is it, 30?
You're not even a 28 or whatever. It is.
Yeah.
Barely a 28, not even a double A. Your best bet is going to be to go with one of these grow bras here. So one day when you do grow, it'll grow with you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thanks. We'll just go try it on.
And it's so sad, but like there's, I don't know, I felt like the parents in this really celebrated them becoming young women. And it was like a big thing. Like when she got her period, she's like, I'm a woman. And her mom's like, you're a woman. And it's just like a very cute celebratory moment, which makes me so sad that you didn't have that.
I did not. I thought I was dying.
Okay. I would have really missed you.
I had no idea what was happening. I think my first introduction to this stuff was, I mean, obviously before I got it, but they do the whole like separate the boys from the girls and they bring you into separate classrooms and you watch the movies about your bodies.
Yes. What grade did you guys do that in?
6th grade.
We did it in 5th grade.
Yeah. So 6th grade is when I learned about it, but it was like towards graduation. And then in 7th grade is when I got my period. And so like,
well, at least you had a little info.
I had the stuff that they gave us from that when I got it.
Oh.
So, you know, there's that. And it's funny because like I I just assumed that was normal, that you don't really talk about this stuff. And this is, just how you just kind of figure it out.
Meanwhile, your son, the sweetest little boy.
I mean, I think like as a mom, because I was so unaware of my own body, like I really didn't want to raise a kid who didn't understand what his fellow friends, especially the girls, if they're going through something and they don't have someone to talk to about it, or they need help getting something, that he would be a safe place. And he is very sweet about it. Like, always checks on me when he knows I have mine, and asks if I need a heat pack or if I need some chocolate.
That's my boy.
And so I think like,
Didn't you say he asked if he could have a tampon and a pad in his book bag in case one of his female friends needed one?
Yeah. And he also like offers to buy them if I need them at the store. He'll ask if I...
Sweetest boy ever.
So that's like a great tie-in to one of the funniest things in the book to me is like pretty early in the book when they talk about when she first meets Nancy Wheeler, when Margaret first meets Nancy Wheeler when they moved to Jersey. She also meets her brother. And what's hilarious is the way he's described in the book. Like I laughed out loud because it's such a like little girl way of describing a boy, especially a younger brother. And I have an older brother and a younger brother. So like I know this feeling so well. And she's like, she describes him as this disgusting because he's 14. And it's such a funny thing because girls think boys, especially brothers, are just the grossest
in the universe that have ever lived. And
like especially like older boys, they haven't gotten to that point of like, oh.
Until she meets Moose.
I know.
And then she gets a little crush.
In the book and the movie, that's a little bit different. Mm-hmm. But I really loved actually the way Moose's character in the movie.
Stop.
He's just the sweetest.
At the end of the movie when she's leaving for camp and he says, do you think we could hang out when you get back?
It's so sweet. And his sweet curly hair. Oh. And he's just a very sweet guy, which is funny because the brother is kind of just a smelly. He's just a smelly little brother. He's just annoying.
Older brother, but yes.
Yeah. Oh, right. Older brother. I'm thinking of my little brother.
I know.
That's what
Sorry, buddy, if you're listening.
So I really appreciated that. And I really loved, so obviously I didn't read this as a child, but reading it as an adult, I think you have like a different perspective, obviously. And I really enjoyed the like kind of journey that Margaret goes on, because it's not just her coming into womanhood, it's also her figuring out like kind of who she is in the world with her parents and her family and like religion and like, what she truly wants. And it's really cool to kind of see in the book, but also in the movie. Like I think the movie does a really good job of showing this like internal battle that she's going through, where she like meets these cool girls and she's kind of like, oh, I really want to be just like them. But then as she starts to mature, she realizes like, I don't like who those girls are being.
The preteen sensations?
Yeah. And I think like that character is she's very intense, but like I think I like the fact that she is intense the way she is, because it really shows her. She kind of like as the story goes, you see her kind of start to crumble a little bit, because she obviously like is obsessed with having, bigger boobs. And, the quote at the beginning of the episode today, the chant that they say in her room.
Exercise.
It's the exercise to get bigger boobs, and that's how you get bigger boobs. And I think it's really interesting to see like she also kind of fibs about getting her period before she gets her period. And then when she gets her period, she has a freak out. And I don't remember.
Are you talking about Nancy Wheeler?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if it's exactly the same in the book and the movie, but in the movie.
It is. They go to Radio City Music Hall.
Yeah. And when she's in the bathroom, she like has a panic and she's like, can you go get my mom? And Margaret goes and gets her mom, and she comes in and they're talking about like, it's okay, honey, like it's just your period, whatever. And then Margaret kind of goes, is this how she gets every time she gets her period? And she's like, no, honey, this is just the first time she's ever gotten it. And she realizes.
And Margaret's world is rocked. She's like, she's a liar.
So rocked.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of goes into that very immature kind of mindset of like, you need to be the first one because you don't want to be the one that doesn't understand what's happening, and you kind of want to be the one that's like, well, look at me. And the fact that they kind of pick on that one girl who has matured really quickly.
Yeah, poor Laura Danker.
And I think it's partially because they're jealous of the fact that she's matured a lot quicker, and so there's all these rumors that are spread about this poor girl, and it's sad because like that's so true even today.
Oh my gosh, when they kept talking about how the teacher, Mr. Benedict, doesn't call on her and like is constantly looking at her, and whether it's true or not, it's like it's the 70s. Number one,
exactly.
Number two, in the movie she's more tall than she is developed, and where in the book she's both taller but also very developed. And the brother, Nancy Wheeler's brother, and says, so Nancy says that she goes behind the A&P with him and Moose so they can feel her up, which is them probably wishing that they could feel this girl's tatas. And again, a little girl that age just being sexualized, whether she wants to be or not.
Yeah.
You know, back to the religion portion of it, that's where the title comes in, right? Like, are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. She has these conversations with God. She doesn't have a religion. Her dad's Jewish. Her mom's Christian, super, super Christian. Decided to marry a Jewish man. Her mom's parents said, okay, well, we can't have a Jew for a son-in-law, is essentially the line in the book.
And she's not religious, the mom.
Nope.
But her mother and father are very
religious.
Yeah.
So they don't speak to those grandparents.
Yeah.
And so Margaret doesn't really have a religion, but when they moved to New Jersey, one of Nancy says it to her, like, well, how do you know if you're going to go to the Y or to the Jewish Community Center? Like, where are you going to go to hang out? And she's like, well, I better figure this out because how do I know if I'm going to go to the Y or the Jewish Community Center?
Yeah.
And in the movie, they hit it. She's got this really beautiful, wonderful, close relationship with her grandma, who is the grandma on the dad's side. So she's Jewish.
Yeah.
And they cast it with Kathy Bates. Like, are you kidding me? She plays the most incredible grandma. New York City, 70s grandma. And they just have this truly a beautiful, adorable relationship. Not just like a grandma, like they're friends. They're best friends.
Yeah.
That scene where they're laying in the bed and having their sleepover and they're like chatting, and she says, oh, by the way, before I go to sleep, if you hear any or it's not me, go back to sleep. You didn't hear it. And like they're just giggling and like it's just the cutest little grandma-granddaughter relationship.
And then she says, like, Grandma, I want to go to temple with you. And the grandma jumps out of the bed.
She's like, we have to find something to wear.
Yeah. It is very sweet.
So she has to do this, like, year-long project. And the teacher's like, you know, she decides she wants to find her religion.
Yeah.
And then she has these conversations with God where she's like, I didn't feel you today in this church. I didn't feel you in temple. I thought I'd feel different. And she's, like, going through this whole thing. But, man, were her parents ahead of their time because they didn't want her to do anything.
Yeah.
They wanted her to wait till she was an adult because religion had essentially ruined both their lives in their minds, you know, like they didn't get married.
Yeah. They didn't want her to have to choose between.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's just like a truly, you know, she's using these conversations with a God she doesn't even think she believes in.
Yeah.
But it's like her friend that, you know, she confides in throughout this whole thing. And you get a lot of those conversations. And there's a line that she says at the very end, it like broke my heart when she says that there's nobody out there. So she doesn't think that God's listening to her because she doesn't get to go to Florida. She hasn't gotten her period.
She's like devastated about that.
She's heartbroken. And she says that there's nobody out there. There's nobody listening. There's only just me. And it's so sad. It's so, so sad. But there's, you know, the very end of the book, the way that the book and movie end, she gets her period. And then she's like, thank you, God. Thank you. Thank you. I knew you were there for me. Thank you. And she just uses it.
She's so happy.
She's so cute. But there's we do a lot of book to TV to movie to screen things where we're like, okay, they use the book as like an idea, jumping off point.
Yeah. No, this is it's the script.
It's fantastic.
I should have looked this up, but I didn't pay attention to who did the screen play?
I'll tell you right now.
And were they, did they really connect it with
It was
Judy Blume's?
the screenplay was directed by Kelly Freeman Craig, and the screenplay was written by Kelly Freeman Craig.
Awesome.
And produced by Judy Blume. She's a producer, so I'm sure she had a lot of.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I think too, because like the casting, when you read the book, the little girl that plays Margaret, she's incredible. She's exactly who I envisioned for the character.
I don't know anymore, but I think that maybe the truth is there's nobody up there. There's nobody listening.
By the way, this movie, 99% in Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, because it's a really well done. And I think that's the thing is like you don't even have to know what the book is to enjoy this movie. It's a very standalone movie.
I love this movie
it is.
much.
It's one of those like warm and fuzzy. And I think it's a beautiful movie to watch with your daughter or your son, because I think the other thing is like allowing your kids to kind of see both sides of, see inside the, what
brain of an 11-year-old
yeah,
girl.
like exactly. I think it's important for people to be there for each other, and this really shows how. And I think that's something that I enjoyed in the movie. Is in the book, it's a little bit less. In the movie, the mom's character is so involved, and she also has a little bit more of her own side story,
played by Rachel McAdams.
Yeah,
is perfect every day.
She's so beautiful, and towards the end, she goes back to teaching her class, and has
that's in my notes. I have that when they're leaving New York City, and she's like, "I won't have to teach anymore. I'll get to be home with you all the time." And she says, "But you love teaching art, Mom."
Yeah, and she just in the movie, you see her face, kind of just like, I do, but we're going to do this. It's a change we're going to make.
And they struggle, right? Like she struggles with her identity as this new suburban mom, and she tries to join all the PTA clubs, and then she's like,
just chaos. And
I'm
then
out.
New couch. She wants to buy a new couch. She gets rid of the old one. I love the scene where the husband comes home and he's going to watch probably the football game or something.
God, that is so
And he's got the lawn chair, and she's like, oh my gosh, I promise I'm going to buy a couch. He's like, no, this is perfect.
He goes, I can do this. And he reclines all the way back. One of my favorite moments in the movie that you kind of get in the book, but the way that they portrayed it in the movie is fucking fantastic. So one of the girls' dads has an anatomy book.
Oh my!
So they steal it, right? They're having one of their super secret meetings where they're not allowed to wear socks for some reason. And they're looking at this anatomy book, and they're looking at a penis. And
they're describing it.
And they're like, it looks like a thumb.
It does. A wrinkly one. And it's droopy.
And then Nancy Wheeler's like, my brother's looks like that. And they're like, how do you know? He walks around naked all the time.
He thinks he's so cool.
He thinks he's so cool. And they're like, oh my God. And then they tell Margaret to go get her dad's Playboy. Because she's like, my dad has Playboy magazines. So they go and get one. And they open up to the centerfold. And I have it written down. I was crying laughing at this part, but she's like, they're so round. Look how round they are. Mine just look kind of like tiny little wizard hats. And I was crying. I was like, what a hilarious line.
That's perfect.
And then they start talking about when I think one of the girls gets her period first.
It's the one with the
Gretchen.
Yes.
Yeah, Gretchen gets her period first. And then this is before Gretchen gets it, and she's like, someone's sister had it, and they're like, well, my sister said it kind of smells like monkey bars. And the one little girl goes, man, I used to really like monkey bars. It's just the most, I don't know. I know why people love this movie so much. It is so true to 11-year-olds.
It really is.
And 11-year-old girls getting together to talk about these things. I remember when I got my first bra, it was a matching Pocahontas bra and underwear set. And it was not a bra. It was literally just a tank top that cut off at the middle with elastic in it. And it was Lion King and Pocahontas. And my sister and I got them.
was going to say, my first bra was Christmas Eve, gifted to me from my grandmother in front of all the cousins. And it was Little Mermaid
I'm
print.
engaged to her cousin, guys.
My grandmother loved giving undergarments at Christmas. And so all the cousins would be opening. I don't know about the boys. I think because all the girl cousins were just so embarrassed by the fact that we were given panties and bralettes.
I mean,
every year, Amanda. Every year.
What happened when you actually had boobs?
You got a bralette with some kind of character on it.
You're walking around 16 with a Scooby-Doo titty?
You know.
Where's she shopping for these things?
Well, it stopped before I was 16. So
okay, that's
fair. It was, but like for most of my like young, like the years I didn't know what was happening to my body. Yeah, those
Dale,
years.
that makes me so sad. I'm so sorry. But you know, in your mom's defense, that is kind of how it was. Like my mom, this is like my favorite story. She told me that she thought she was dying because she had eaten a bunch of cherries, like just like a whole jar of cherries, and it made her really constipated, right? So she couldn't poop, and she was like, oh my God, I'm in labor.
Yeah.
And she couldn't poop, and she was on the toilet, and she's like, you know, her mom was like a Puerto Rican, like children are seen, they are not heard.
Yeah.
Like you do not interrupt me ever. And my mom said she was just in the bathroom, and she was like 10. She's like, I can't be a mom. I never even know where I put my dolls. Like, can't believe I'm about to give birth in this toilet.
Yeah.
All because she was constipated from eating cherries. Like, you know, there's also very vivid moments of, I don't know how it went for you, but I was not the first of my friends to get my period. Obviously, I had the friend that got it in 3rd grade. But what speaks to how wonderful my mom is, I didn't know my friend had gotten her period in the 3rd grade. My friend felt only comfortable telling my mom. She couldn't even tell her mom. So my mom once a month would buy her pads and like showed her how to use them. I know, my mom is the cutest.
That is so
And so it wasn't until I don't remember who got it first in our friend group, but it wasn't me that we knew about. And she was like the first one to get it. And then our other friend was like, well, I've had mine for a while. And like when she first got it, she was just using toilet paper and like, oh, sweet baby angel. And I think about all these moms out there that they just thought that, okay, the school will take care of it, right? Like their moms didn't tell them, they got through it, and that's how they think it goes. I'm so glad that we're in a world now where like, now that's everybody knows. I mean, my niece tells my sister all the time when she needs a tampon, she hands them to her and she goes, here's a stink pod for you, Mom. You have your period. Here's a stink pod. What?
You know what's funny about that is, so I'm going to just like jump ahead a little bit. This is a little personal story, but when I gave birth, I had a cesarean. And in my mind, nothing would happen in the lady bits because they took the baby out. And so
I'm feeling hot.
My recovery, you could understand the shock I had when I then got said period after.
My sister said it's the worst you've ever had in your life.
Yes. And then, because you bleed for several days after, right? But then I was right back onto my cycle. So I finished said birthing period and began the actual period. My body was like, yep, let's do this. We're ready. Okay. Cleaned all the yuck out. Let's do it again. I had no idea. And like the pad size for that, ladies, if you know, you know, it is a small diaper.
I mean, I think these women that wear diapers during their period are really onto something.
There's something.
I mean, I don't know if I could do it because I'm such a weird texture person.
Oh, it's like the period underwear. I'm sorry.
I have friends that swear by them.
I'm sorry.
I just don't. How do you not know?
Where does it go, Amanda?
When you put it in the wash, you can't wash anything else with it.
You're supposed to hand wash them. And then you put them in the laundry.
That's like I have a friend who used the Diva cup.
Yeah.
And she's like, you just have to boil it. And I'm like,
Yeah, great.
in a pot?
How do you get it out without spilling?
How do you, but like in a pot? Do you just have one pot for your period Diva cup? I don't trust my fiance not to make himself a little macaroni and cheese in that pot.
You know, like when you have a bunch of stuff in like a cabinet, right? It's like when you need it, you go in and you grab it. And sometimes it's a little dusty or like, you know, because, you know, things are being moved all the time, right? Hairbrushes, whatever. I can only imagine something like that you probably have more than one of, I would assume.
I don't know.
And so like they're rubbery and you put them in your cabinet, right? And then you use them when you have your period.
Listen,
do you clean them before you put them in?
Everyone that uses these things, they're taking way better. Yeah, they're taking way better care of their bodies than I am. I'm very aware of that.
They didn't have these during the 70s.
No, they didn't. Also, the pad that they use in the movie that they show you is like a perfect 70s pad.
It is incredible.
It's like what I assume you got in your C-section. It's like 18 inches long and 5 inches thick.
Yes.
And I love when Margaret puts it in her underwear and like turns around and looks at it in the mirror.
You've done that.
Oh, did you not have a girlfriend when you'd wear your pad and be like, can you see me?
See it. Mm-hmm.
And you'd walk in front of them and be like, no, you're good.
Yeah, you can't see it.
Meanwhile, I'm wearing Paris blue bell bottoms that are like basically 1 inch above my vagina.
Yeah.
And my butt cheeks are hanging out, but you know.
But we can't see
my period pad.
So that's good. That is one thing that my mother told me about is that when she first got hers, their pads had to be clipped in. And there was like a harness
That's what my mom
that
said
you
too.
strapped on. And I was like, that. It was clearly made by a man.
For sure.
Definitely a man making that.
For sure. I also love in the movie and the book when they realize that like Margaret's so pissed, and I think it's in the book when they realize that the video is sponsored by a pad company, and then they hand them the pads from that company, and she's so mad. She's like, am I being sold to?
Yeah.
This is horrendous. She is so pissed off about this. She can't believe it.
She's so feisty.
She is. And you know what I love about this too? She's very introspective, and she's very, you know, the inner dialogue of an 11-year-old girl in any time. This takes place in the 70s. If you were to read this now, it still holds up.
It still does.
It's insane how much it holds up. The little party they go to, and they play spin the bottle, and they kiss on the cheek. Are you kidding me?
So I love that, like, after it happens, she's like, oh, I don't even remember how many times he kissed me. He must have kissed me like 10 times, but I can't honestly remember how many times.
Yeah, and it's like 2 little pecks.
Exactly.
But he's so hot. Their little boy books. Oh, God, that's so cute.
It's just a very sweet. I know. I really enjoyed it. I'm a full-grown female, and
First of all, the book's 127 pages. This is how short the book is, guys. Dayelle came in today, and she's like, I don't think I finished it. I was like reading it before I fell asleep. I don't think I finished it. Because she gets her period way earlier in the book than she does the movie. I'm like, no, that's the last like line of the book. And Dale's like, no, it's like only chapter 20 something. I'm like, Dale, there's only 20 something chapters. Dale was so convinced she missed like a huge, wonderful ending of this book. She was done.
Because I got the book on Libby. And so I'm reading it like on my phone, which I never do. And so like it's teeny tiny and I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, I've got so much more to go, but I just can't, like my eyes won't stay open anymore. I have to go to sleep. And so I'm assuming like I have a whole half of the book to go. But I remember you saying like there's not that many pages, but on the book, the Libby app or whatever, it didn't give me like my settings,
the page count,
something.
Yeah.
So I had no idea where I was. I just knew I was at chapter 20 something. And I just was like, oh my God, she got her period already. And like, it was so exciting. I'm like, what else is going to happen? I don't understand. How does this play? Okay.
Nothing happens.
Okay.
You did it though. You finished it.
I did. And it was really cute. And I also really loved the inner dialogue of Margaret. Like you don't get that in the movie. It's all visual, but I really appreciated that narrative because it really shows her struggle with so much of like what every little girl kind of goes through. If you separate like maybe the religion aspect of it, I still think as a little girl, you're always kind of trying to figure out who you are and like who you want to be
Sure,
and
absolutely.
the friends you want to make. And, You know, like, do you go along with the person that's being mean to people just to be mean to people, or should you just be your own person? And I love in the movie visually the party where they're all like, you know, they're like the graduation party. Yep. I love the part where she just goes over to the one girl who's like the very tall, and she asks her if she wants to dance, and she's like, "Yeah, I want to dance." And they just start dancing, and then like one of the other little girls who was in her little clique, I don't remember any of their names. It's terrible. She also sees them dancing, and she goes over and joins them, and just like super carefree, and just like, this is the best. And I really appreciated that visual. And then I don't know that we've touched on this yet, but I really loved the teacher in the movie.
Me too.
I felt like, I'm glad that was kind of it seemed like maybe the biggest difference from book to movie, as in like, he's kind of the reason why she decides to do the religion thing based on the questionnaire. And I just really liked that. And like, that happens in the book, but it's just different. Like, she just kind of decides to do it.
Yeah, she still answers that she hates religious holidays because she doesn't celebrate any religious holidays.
Yeah. But I just appreciated that. And I also loved his just honesty, like how he's just like, you know, this is my first year, so I hope that everyone.
He's
like,
so cute.
He's so nervous, and he's like, you know, everyone starts judging you, and then you're thinking about everyone judging you, and you're like, you know.
And then he goes, "Okay, a room full of kids looking at me. Okay, all right." And then the end when she says, "You're a really good teacher."
Yeah. Also, I think there's like a little bit of an emotional element because they're, you know, 6th grade going into 7th grade, and like my son was in 6th grade and went to 7th grade, and it's a very emotional, you don't think it's going to be that emotional, but it's such a milestone of their life. And like that next step to turning like 13 is such a huge, you know, like, I don't know. It's really sweet.
It's also a very, this is an important time in any young, like, I feel sometimes that we don't take these kids seriously when they're like 11 or 12 years old. And it's like a really serious time in their lives. Like, you don't know what the hell is happening inside your body. You have no control over your hormones, over anything. And yeah, you don't know. Your emotions are everywhere. And, you know, Judy Blume, she's been praised because she tackles topics like menstruation, you know, bodies, masturbation, you know, she does it on purpose because these are important topics. And this is like, this book is, talk about freaking like pop culture royalty. This book is mentioned so much throughout times, and there's a reason why.
Yeah. Well, and she does it so well. She, you know, she talks about really hard things and about, you know, the changes our bodies make, but in a way that is so, you can just absorb it. It just works. It works really well.
Did you read the boy version?
Boy version? No.
Of this? I read it. I have not read it since I was a kid, but it's called Then Again, Maybe I Won't. It's about a 12-year-old boy going through puberty.
You know what's funny is it recommended that to me.
Yeah, it's really sweet since you have a little, I think you should read it. It's really cute. But I just quickly read through it because I was like, I'm not going to read this.
Yeah.
We had so many books to read this week.
Yeah.
But it's like this book is referenced in so many things. It has a list of things it's referenced. It's Ted Lasso, The Simpsons, South Park, Lost, Deadpool, Talladega Nights, Chelsea Handler's book, Are You There, Vodka? It's Me, Chelsea. That's so fucking funny.
I love it.
Are You There, God? It's Me, Ellen, Ellen Coyne's book. There's so, like, this is, I think, around for everybody reads it. Except,
what do you call it? The coming of age.
Coming of age.
It is a really good coming of age.
Also, I can't believe how good the movie was, though.
Can we just talk? Sorry, I wrote this in my notes and then I forgot to bring it up. So I have to bring it up. Is the practicing kissing
on the bedpost?
Bedpost. I was very confused by that.
I was like, she's really going.
Yeah, she's really, like, she was really into that.
I kissed my pillow.
I was just going to say, I literally have kissing pillows in my notes.
In the book, she kisses the pillow.
Yes.
In the movie, she's going to town on the bedpost, so much that Margaret laughs.
I don't know why that change was made, though. It's kind of random.
Yeah.
Like, why couldn't she just pick up a pillow? Maybe because they really wanted to show the fact that she thought she knew, because she kind of puts on a show, right? That's kind of her personality.
Yes.
And so I think by doing that, you really see her like going.
Do you think?
She just like calls Margaret out too. Oh, you're flat.
Oh my God, what a brat.
I was like,
oh, freaking brat.
So when she puts the socks in her bra.
In the book, it's 3 cotton balls in each boob, which would look hilarious. The socks make a little more sense. But in the book, doesn't she put them in before they go to the party?
Yes.
In her velvet dress.
Yes.
Oh my God, they're so cute at the party. I have a line in here that just made me laugh so hard. Kathy Bates, when they first say that they're moving to New Jersey, and she's on the phone with Rachel McAdams. This is Rachel McAdams' mother-in-law. And she said, she like asks if Margaret can go visit her or whatever. And she's, Rachel McAdams says, not for this or whatever. And she says, I've heard when you don't have any loved ones around, your life expectancy drops dramatically. But oh, well, I've had a really good run. It's just like the most mother-in-law thing to say.
That's hilarious.
And then I have another line that if you are not from this area like we are, like in New York, this probably won't land as well. But this is so pinnacle. And Margaret said, but when I groaned, why New Jersey? I was told Long Island is too social, Westchester's too expensive, and Connecticut's too inconvenient. So Farbrook, New Jersey it was.
That's a good line.
It's really good.
It's a really good line. This was a good one. I liked this, and I feel like it's, it's a little ode to childhood.
Yeah.
We've been doing a lot of those this month.
We have.
But I like them.
Maybe
We're
because
revisiting.
so bad. We just want to be kids again.
Reliving our childhood.
It's fine with me.
Not mine, but, others.
You can revisit mine if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, for me, this is hard. This is, if this movie was not as good as it was, this is a read it all day, every day for me. This book is so good to me to read. And it is 127 page, guys.
Yeah,
you can
it's not
rip
a hard
through
one.
this.
Yeah.
If you're listening in audiobook on like psycho speed like I do, I think it took me like 2 hours audiobook.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. And there's also, so what I found when I was looking for the book, I got the physical book, and then the physical book just didn't show up.
It did. We just don't know where it is.
We just don't know where it is.
Somewhere in our building.
And so I ended up, I was like, oh, I'll just get the audiobook. And then when I went to get the audiobook, the version that is on Audible specifically is the movie. I forget what they call it. It's like the movie correct. That's not the right phrasing.
Yeah.
But it was like changed to fit exactly the movie. I don't know what that means necessarily because I've never seen it titled like that. And I was kind of like, maybe that means it's a different version than the original. So I didn't want to listen to that. Not to knock it at all. It could be incredible. But then I, upon your recommendation, checked out the Libby app, which is wonderful once you have a library card. And I was able to get the book.
Let's just shout that out.
Yeah,
Get a local library card, guys. And on Libby, if you do not use any apps, you can get audiobooks and books right to your Kindle.
Exactly. That was exactly what I was going to say. So they had 2 versions. They had the physical book, and then they had the audiobook. I did the book itself, but then I also borrowed because you borrow them because it's the library. I also did the audiobook just in case I was worried. I was like, oh, if I'm not into it, then I'm going to need to listen to it.
Smart. That was smart.
But it was so easy to just read. So I just read it on my phone. But the audiobook was great. I don't know who does it, but
cute.
Yeah,
it was really good.
Definitely
I really loved it.
Definitely worth it.
I love this book, and the movie was so good. If you've read the book, and like it got kind of buried, which kind of sucks. It did not do well at the box office.
I think because of what it covers. I think it's I think what it is like parents who are open to allowing their kids to see this were probably too old to go to the movie theater, so they just didn't care. Or though, when did it come out? Did it come out during any specific? It was like 2023.
It came out in 2023, but Judy Blume said she rejected several offers in the 49 years since she published it. Mm-hmm. And she eventually sold the film rights to James L. Brooks and Kelly Freeman Craig, who worked together on The Edge of 17. And, it's, I don't know. I don't know why it didn't do well. Yeah. I feel like maybe it's doing better in streaming, but if you have not watched it, You really need to.
So
It's so cute.
So what is your...
It's a read it for me, always.
Okay.
But this movie far exceeded my expectations. Like, I loved this movie so much. I could not... Rachel McAdams in the 70s is so hot.
It's so good.
And
she plays the mom so well.
so perfectly. And the dad is perfect. And Kathy Bates and that little girl that Abby Ryder Forston is just...
The casting was perfection in this.
It was really great. And if you have not watched it, like, really, I beg you to watch it.
Yeah.
But read it. If you're a woman who hasn't read this, you gotta read it. It'll just make you laugh and giggle and bring you back to, like, such a forgotten time in your life.
I'm going to do a both.
Yeah, this is definitely a both, but if you haven't read it.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's so quick. It's so quick and short, and it's very enjoyable. And it will make you laugh because it will bring you back.
So nostalgic.
Yeah, it really is. Well, on that note.
Are you there, God? It's me, Amanda.
And Dayelle.
Bye. Our editor is Katie Yonner. Our associate producer is Grace Heerman. And our senior content producer is Kyle Bosch. Our executive producer is Tommy West. And watch